I've got the motor as high as it'll go, and luckily the nose of the boat's down a little, which lifts the engine end up a little. So it's looking good. This is rock cut. Again, a place that a lot of the locals have never even been through just because of its name. They don't know where the boulders are, and they are everywhere. I was lucky enough to be taught by Klaus how to go through here early on, and I've stayed that course for 300 plus trips through here. And I'm not going to say any more. I don't want to jinx myself. But the lower the water gets during the summer, the more dangerous it gets. By September, it gets really dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. You can get away with a little bit more in the spring when the water's up. I don't know if you can see on that rock face there, the water, the dark areas where the water level is in the spring. So it's a couple feet higher. When that disappears, gets a little more dangerous. And again, if you get hit, you hit something, and your motor's out. There's no phone service, and there's no marina, and nobody knows your engine went out, or your props sheared off, or any number of things. Just makes it a little. I apply a little more caution. Right now, I'm seeing boulders at the surface of the sun. I don't know if you can see those. This time of day, the sun hits the water and reflects off the orangish color of the iron-stained boulders. So we're looking good. This is the most serious part. I think I've explained that milk bottle and that bottle are what you line up, and you stay in a straight line with them. Then you hang a 90 degree, or not 90, but a hard left. Once you hit that, and then you go to the tip of the fallen tree, that's new. You cut it back a little bit to help line up. Because again, that shoreline there is super dangerous. So I think I'm going to make this turn. Again, when the water goes down, it changes your course. You think you're where you're at, but you're not. And there's a new tree under the water. Yeah, I don't think it's hard to see those boulders. You don't want to hit that with your boat. All right, then you're going to line it up just with the tip of this tree, because over there's more boulders. So good, I'm out. Head to the island. It's August 8th. Got a lot of projects to wrap up, and some trail work to do. All right, we're coming to the rice beds, wild rice beds. Back it down a little bit, and I'm going to lift the motor. Probably don't have to at this time of year. All right, motor's up. And I think you can see that little cut path. That's what you're supposed to line up with and use, so we don't destroy this. This rice bed is huge. People from all over here to gather wild rice, especially the moose. You can tell when they go through, everything's chopped off like a lawnmower, but it's looking good. All the people that visit this area use it, use the trail, this will last forever. I'm sure this wild rice bed took centuries to develop. It's pretty vast. It's hard to tell, but it's no little bed. It's super thick in there. A little motor like I have, you'd get wrapped up and you'd be hitting stuff that you don't even know is in the water. Anything from rocks, because obviously it's shallow, or the rice bed couldn't take grip. So it's pretty cool. And again, this separates the other lakes that are east of here. And then when we get further, we'll line up with that tallest tree. And there's a big beaver dam. It's kind of new. Again, if you know them, they're really nice landmarks for you to use. Actually, there might be two being built. I know there's one. This is what I'm talking about as far as one of the new landmarks. This is the new beaver hut. It's pretty big, and it looks like he's adding on to it. The water's going to get on the ledge now. We're not to the middle of the lake yet. That's where the waves get big. So, I think I'm going to quit filming and pay more attention. I don't want to. I gotta go. Hard to believe it's the same lake. So the island at the high point, which you can't see, is over 100 foot tall. So that's how much it blocks what I just went through back there, which was all white caps on the whole lake. Really glad to be here. Now I can hug the shoreline and get to where I'm going. That was a rough crossing. It's August 8th. I'm back for my 4th trip this year. Bringing out all kinds of hardware that I can't get up here to finish off a couple projects. I'm going to put another floor on top of the other floor going the other direction, theoretically. Before I do that though, my two big support posts in the center of the cabin, I like the one in the back. I want to take the one out in the front, and I want to make it substantially bigger. So I got to do that now. I can't wait and think about doing it after I put the other floor, you know. I got to do it at the same time. So that'll be interesting to say the least. I'll have to figure out 2 other supports to support that giant beam, because now the roof is on, the gate, you know, the shingles, all the purloins, all that weight. So to pull that out, I've got to have something under that beam that goes across the width of the cabin, so that when I pull that out, it doesn't, you know, I don't think it would go down. But even if it goes down a little, I don't want that. I want to be able to put 2 supports. Like, here's the outside wall, here's the outside wall, here's our 6 foot in, our 2 big posts in the cabin. I just want to take this guy out, and by doing that I'll put a support here and a support here. Pound them into place so they're at the same height, maybe a little tad higher, and then I'll unscrew the screws from the top and the bottom and tap that out of place, and then replace it with a much cooler, it's a piece of Herman, one one of my meanest logs from the cabin. I think he's row 11 or row 9. I'll have to actually find him again. I kept the top of him. He was like a 40-foot log, and I had enough left. I can make a new support out of him. He's got a lot of character knots. I'm going to bring him out here and work on him before I put him in place. So lots of different things to do. And then framing out the door, if I get lucky enough to do that, that would be pretty cool. Even if I don't get the door in, just having the frame in. I'm framing it out with 2x12s, 2-inch thick, 12-inch wide, treated, just like the windows, what I did with the windows, so everything will be the same. All right, and I did get some footage of the waves and the whitecaps this time, only in the beginning, because I could just sense by the time I got to this lake what was going to happen. So I put the camera near me, and I got a little bit, a little taste of it on the area that's not the bad part. And then I put the camera away. But the weather's nice. It was in the 40s last night. This is August 8th. And it was in the 40s. So I slept well. I'm back. It's August 8th. I'll try to put in 10 days, get some new work done on the replacing one of the big ceiling or roof supports, making it twice as big and much cooler. It's got a lot of knots in it. The one I picked, it's okay, it's just not cool enough. And obviously the one I'm gonna pick, it'll be twice as strong, twice as big around. Then I'm gonna try to do all the black on the ends of all the logs. I can't remember if I've done that since COVID. So I'm gonna get that done. Then I'm gonna attempt to finish the trim work on all the windows, the white part that goes around the foam. So, got a lot to do. And the weather's really nice right now. It was 40 in the 40s last night. So I went from Illinois being in the mid-90s to a high yesterday. I think the high was 61. And the night was in the 40s, so somewhere in that range. Anyway, I'm glad to be back. I got to get all the shutters off. Check all the cameras. I checked 2 of them already. Nothing's been going on, but that's the work I'm talking about redoing. All the black and the tar-like stuff that I put on the ends of all the logs. Should be a long 10 days. Well, the things we couldn't do last time because we didn't have the generator up and running. I finished trimming out the windows. I hope you can see that. Really did make a difference. Never done it before, but I'm liking it. And I'm liking the sound of that generator running nice, because that's what I need to run my saws to cut the wood for the framing of the door and a lot of other things. You can see out there I haven't brought in all the boxes of stuff from our latest trip, but the windows look nice. Got all 6 of them done. I'm sure you can't see those, so I'll quit doing that. All right, that's That's better than I thought it would be. Whew. My goal this morning is I leveled the bench. It's not perfectly level, but it's a lot better than it was. Didn't think you had to watch that. But now I'm going to get the beam out of the cabin that Gail and I picked to replace the main entrance beam. It's nice, but it's not that cool, so I can't stand it. So it's about that big. I'm replacing it with one about this big with a lot of knots and character. But to do that right, I've got to, I've had it kept dry inside. I'm pulling it out, putting it on the bench. And I fixed the generator that will run a tool. I didn't fix it. And Antioch Small Engines fixed it for me. Great guys. Runs like a top now. So I can run a grinder and a saw, one or the other. So real happy, but I'm going to try to get this out and up on the bench. I picked this particular beam because it's one of the most stout, sturdy logs. The bulk of the log is one of the logs in the cabin. All right. Just got to keep it from rolling off the bench. It's all about tools, leverage. A little too heavy to do that. All right. All right. Now, I can really do a good job of sanding that, cleaning it up, and even sealing it before putting it in place. I got to taper that one end, like I did all the roof mounts or the supports for the purloins. So I hope my theory works. Now I'm going to head over. I'm going to head to the other side of the island where the pontoon is at in Harry's Harbor. The ice destroyed part of my ramp to pull it out into the forest. So I brought a wetsuit and because the water's still cold, and a lot of leeches. So I'll be in the water a lot of the day. So I've got to put a new log in place submerged under the water with rocks piled on the ends of it to drive the pontoon up onto it to get it far enough into the forest so that in the spring when the water rises and freezes, the pontoon won't be affected. So that's my plan for today. This went a lot easier than I thought. And like I said, it'll be great to work on this now outside. We'll film that later. I feel like I'm saran wrapped, but the water here is still in the high 40s. Surface air, the top surface could be 60 maybe. That doesn't work for the rest of you all day working in the water. I'm going to be working on Harry's Harbor. I've got my mat axe, baby sledgehammer, chainsaw, moving straps, winch in the boat, spade, mat axe, extra rope, utility knife, camo paint to touch up the pontoon boat. I have to rebuild the ramp to get the boat out of the water. So I've learned it's just better to go in the water and work rather than try to dance around. So that's where I'm heading. It's weird I don't have anywhere to put anything. I'm back at Harry's Harbor. I'm wearing this because of the temperature of the water. I'm going to be working on the entrance, the waterway coming in, but mainly there's two main things. The other one is for the leeches. When you disturb the bottom of the lake, the leeches come out. I found that out the hard way. I was in the water all day. Luckily only up to about here, and all of a sudden I saw blood all over, trailing wherever I was. I got out and I just had a massive amount of leeches clinging on to me. So this is for the cold water and the leeches. So I got a boulder here that's been bugging me for a couple of years, and I brought, I brought some of my childhood toys. This is a new handle because I broke the other one. Hard to get them too. But this is like a sledgehammer and a digging tool, and basically if you sharpen it enough, it'll take out tree roots and like an axe. So for prying, it's really great. And this is my other childhood friend. He's a 25-pound chisel, 4.5 feet long. I use him as a pry bar. So, yes. So I gotta get it up. And then I've just got to keep getting it higher. This thing's always in the way. Yeah. All right, I broke the suction. It's kind of big. Sure it weighs more than me. But I gotta get it out of the way. So it doesn't damage the bottom of the pontoon boat. Okay. All right. I think, I don't know if you can see this or not. Whoa. Whoa. Come on, octopus. So what I'm talking about is this boulder right here. Give you an idea how big it is. That's my hand. So we're talking about, 2.5 feet and about a foot thick. I got to get him out of here so I can bury that log. That's about 14 feet long. Here, cutting across to over there, and that allows me to ride the pontoon boat up that way into the, get it to shore at least. And then with the winch that I mounted in the ground into that tree, sorry, I can hopefully pull it out. But getting this boulder out is gonna probably take a half hour. So that's it for now. Okay, back at the rock, and it's a big one. Behind it, I've dug and pulled all those stones out of the mire, creating a hole right there in front of it. My logic is to lift up this end of the stone and get it to stand up kind of in that hole, and then that should allow me to flip it backwards over there. You could never lift that stone. I'm saying it weighs what I do, but I'm sure it weighs a lot more than I do. Okay, stage 2. So I dug a hole by pulling out all those boulders over there behind the giant boulder. There's no way you could ever lift that thing. It definitely weighs a lot more than me. So now I'm going to try and see if I can get it upright and then topple it back over onto that pile. That's the plan. Alright, it's not quite where I want it, but it's out of the path of the boat. And let's see if I can pull one more maneuver. Whew. Okay. All right, may have to go to plan, the third plan. I hope that's on. So I brought in a log, one of my buddies that I cut, and it's petrified water log. Got it going across. I'm going to try to get my pry bar between the two. See if I can't shove it over. I just I don't want to get caught by any of these guys myself. So, little insurance policy. Put some boulders behind this side of the log so it doesn't just slide back on me. Alright. Okay. So it'll be interesting. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Whew. All right. My wife says I would have made a good Egyptian. I just think I'm a good Basque Irishman. Yes. Yes. Ha ha. Out of the way. I had my doubts with that. Oh. That makes me feel a lot better. Something like that can hang up and rub on the pontoons. So now that is totally out of the way. I'm going to celebrate and take my gloves off for a second. Woo! All right. So now, see where that stake is. So this is completely out of the way. Now the boulder is way over here. I'm real happy. I think from this angle, you can really see that now that boulder is back by this rock pile. That's the end of the logs that go across that make the rail, you know, the ramp that I pull the boat out with. So couldn't be happier. I may even use that as part of the system that holds down my log that goes across. All right. Whew. Probably see it better from over here. I'm not saying I'm not getting tired. All right. Okay. Now, this one's kind of in place. This one, as you can see, I think it's 18 foot. It's waterlogged. I've got to get that up in front going across so I can drive the pontoon or pull the pontoon up onto that. I've obviously got to straighten this one a little bit. So then it'll pull it. Where's my winch? Okay, there's my winch. So using that, standing here, yeah, that's pretty good. Now I got to get this thing buried in boulders so it won't move when I start. These are the pits I made. I'll put the one end in there and one end in there and then bury them and hope that that holds it and allows me to drag the pontoon out of the water. That's the plan. I think I'm just about out of battery on this thing. Whew. Okay, I buried that log end with those boulders and I'll put some more on. And did the same thing over here. I just couldn't keep filming. It's getting warm out, and but I think I got it lined up well. I'll get her up, start her on this one, and get her up to the second one, and put it to bed. She's up on my rails, and she's closed up for the year. She's winterized. I should touch up some of that camo. I think I'll do that in a minute. So, I think you get it. Those are buried, plus they're tied on the ends to the eye screws back down to boulders. these two lines here on either side, keep it from going left or right if the water gets higher. So all in all, it's a wrap. Hunter is going to bed for the year. See you in the spring. And I winterized the motor, like I said, according to the Hailing Boys. All right. I'll talk to you later. That motor that I got from them has served me well. All right. August. I don't know what, 12th, 13th, stuff like that. 14th. I don't know if you can still see my breath or not. So last night, before I left, I covered this because I thought it might rain. Glad I covered it because it did rain. If I walk with a limp, it's because of getting the pontoon boat out onto the new ramp I rebuilt from the ice destroying the one last year, the old one. So there's a lot of physical activity to get that out, even with the crank winch. You got to kind of lift the pontoon up when it gets stuck on the logs, pulling itself out. And one of my knees doesn't like that anymore. So anyway, glad I did this yesterday. These again are log dogs. I'll show you what, I think I've shown you what those are for, but more importantly, just really glad that I covered this, because you do not want to have to work on wet wood. Screws up your sandpaper on your sanders. And it's just not smart. I don't want this to fall off, and I want it to be steady while I'm working on it. That's where these little guys come in. Nice. That's what the log dogs are for. So I've got the generator fixed. I think I told you that. So I'm going to be able to use at least one power tool. And I brought extra discs so that I can make this support beam as smooth as all the other logs inside. All right. So that's it for now. Next is get the generator going. I think you can hear the little generator. I got that fixed back home. So now I can run, like I said before, at least one power tool at a time. So I've got a sander hooked up to a multiple outlet, So this is for the rough parts. So I want this to wind up looking as good or better than any of the other supports. This will be the main support when you walk in. So let's see how this is going to work out. Alright, that's going to take a while, but now that's completely smooth. There's about probably 50 or 60 heavy-duty knots on this log, and then I'll smooth the rest of it and seal it. And this is the part I like, doing this type of stuff. Just going that extra mile to make it look sharp and be more functional and smoother. That's making me real happy. Love the sound of that little generator being able to run. Hand sanding this would be brutal. We've done it, but I much prefer to have the little generator helping with the power tool. I underestimated the damage to my knee from lifting up the front end of the pontoon to get it onto my ramp to get it to start to go out yesterday. It is angry. So, first, using the grinder to bring these knots down, then using the orbital sander to smooth it, and then like everything else that we did during this job, hand sanding the logs, again, it's better for how long they last as well. They're actually recommending now, not when I started the project, but now they're telling guys when they're cutting their notches in the logs to sand them after they cut them. Kind of burns the wood and smooths it, so moisture has a harder time getting in, critters have a harder time getting in, the joints last longer. No one was doing that before. I did that on every one of these a decade ago. No, not a decade ago, 8 years ago. So every one of my joints. So the bottom of this I'll burn too with the sander, seal it, in other words, get the grain so tight Bugs don't have a chance to get in there and start, they'll just go somewhere else. So it's, to me, this is an art project. That's why I burned my notches without knowing that. I just felt that had to be better. It just made sense to me, and it's something I would do on, sorry, eagle going by. It's how I would treat an art project. Why not just spend that extra, 15 minutes and make it better on each log? And then I actually caulked them. That might have been overkill, and treated them with a termite repellent liquid, kind of like womanizing wood. But it'll add longevity to the structure, and I think that's what you want when you build something. So, again, I'm doing the log in quarter sections, not do half and half. If you do that, you tend to miss too much. You do it in quarters, you're getting a little bit of what you did before. You're moving it again, you're getting a little bit of what you did before, again, again, and again. It just makes for a better job. If you're ever unfortunate enough to have to do this, for me, I might get a little bit of pain today, but I couldn't be happier about what I'm doing. Having this log as the entrance log, and it just again completes the concept of the project. This isn't me building a log cabin in my mind. This is the biggest art project I've done in my mind. And the third log up is what this part came from. That log was so nasty, so heavy, so knotty, had so much character, and weighed so much more than the other logs. I actually named him after Herman Munster. So that log has been known for years as Herman. I think it's kind of cool that I'm using Herman, the strong one, to do the main support in the entranceway. So again, like I say, to me, these are learning experiences. What I like more about my artwork and what I've done in my life, of course, some things I learned from older people when I was working with them physically. But in the art aspect, I learned more on my own. I learned by trial and error. And believe me, when you finally have success, it's much more rewarding when you taught yourself than if someone just tells you how to do it. At least in my mind. Probably in a lot of other people's mind, they'd rather get there faster and, as they say, move on. I just appreciate the adventure of doing something, the failure of doing something, and then the success of doing something. So, real happy with this. Not going to be jumping from the landing to the boat to the rocks very easily today. Next thing I have to do is I have to square one of these ends, and it has to be like a perfect 90. That's the part that'll sit on the floor flush. So it's got to be a perfect 90 degree. Neither end is perfect 90 degree. This is cut with a big chainsaw. And then on the other end, whichever I pick, I'm going to measure them and use the highest the narrowest end of the log will be the part that goes up, hopefully. It's pretty uniform, but I've got to taper that down to a size about like that. Just like all the supports you see in the ceiling going off the support logs to the purlins. So on a log this big, it's going to be a little bit harder than it was on those smaller ones. But first I've got to select an end, finish that off, and again, burn that bottom with the grinder and then the sander, and make sure it's really tight grained, so bugs can't go from the floor and start eating up inside. And then taper the other end. So really like the way it's looking. Again, when I do the knots, I try to bring the sanding down from the knots and like a kind of to a point, elongated. It's just a lot nicer looking technique when you have something like this that's a support piece. Again, it's not that much more time. Sorry, I'm not feeling good. I need a handful of Advil and a couple days off, but I don't see that happening. All right, so this is what she looks like. I could get a little better idea of how cool it's going to actually look. And this isn't even sealed yet. So I have to pick an end and start tapering it. I figured out which end of the log is the narrowest, which is that end. It's 7.5 there, it's 8.5 here. And unfortunately, that cut on that end is 90 degrees. It's almost a perfect cut. This is off by about almost ½ an inch. And I only have less than 1 inch play for the length of this to match what it has to be. So I can't be making mistakes unless I want to go through the whole process of getting a log and doing what you just saw. And it wouldn't be as cool. So I've decided it might be a little harder, but I'm going to try and cut this sliver off. I've got it viced on one end, log dogged here. It might take a while, but I'm just going to try to slice just a sliver of that end that's too far out. Whew. I don't know how much of that got filmed. The battery went out in the middle. It's so cold at night that I left the cameras here, but inside it just sucked the life out of them. So hopefully this will be caught, and that'll probably be the last thing I can film today. So I figured out the length, the distance and the diameter of either end. This is the end that's going to go on the floor. Unfortunately, I've got to take a ½ inch off of only half of the side of the log. In other words, it's cut just at a slight angle. That has to be perfectly flush with the floor. I only have 1 inch. This is 90 inches, and that's what I need it to go into is 89 inches. So if I make a mistake, I got to start all over, and I don't want to not use this log. So I'm going to try to do this by hand. Obviously, it won't be as easy, and I intentionally chose a saw that's small long enough to cut through the log this way, but not something that can get out of control and make a mistake. So it's going to take quite a while to do this. But if I keep that saw blade perfectly straight, then I should erase that problem that I've got. With one side being, yeah, I'm going to have that. Okay, I'm going to have to get this end secured more. But I think the idea is going to work. So that's it for filming for today. I think you can hear me pretty well today. It's dead. Forest is dead. There's no wind. Yesterday the battery went out on the camera because I left it out here in the cabin overnight, and the temperature got down in the 40s. This is August 13th. So charged up the batteries, brought extra batteries out. Because today I'm going to be doing something that I probably don't have to do, but I want to do it. This log is completely sanded and shaped at the end. In other words, it's tapered down so it can go up as a support into the main beam. I removed yesterday the main beam that was there. Put two other supports to the right and the left of it, about 5 feet away from each other, so it's about 10 feet in the middle. Because the 12th row here, I made all the logs on the 12th row bigger and longer than any other row except the bottom two. And that was to give me the ability to hang purloins on it and use it as actually as a work tool. You can see that one up there, or maybe you can't, but it's easily 6 feet over. This one's probably 7 feet over. So when I was doing that, you see this? I love having props. This is a little example of how I towed and dragged the logs around. I drilled holes into the end of the log and then cranked in these 8-inch eye bolts. Well, when I was getting the largest, heaviest log up on the 12th row, the hook could no longer hold it. It ripped it out. It sent it flying back over the cabin where I was with the little winch. That went shooting into the forest, and the next thing I heard was this horrendous crash. So that 28-foot log, about that big in diameter, came flying down to the bottom of the cabin, and this went right through the floor. And the impact was, it sounded like a small cannon going off. So what it actually did was it put so much pressure on the joists that I had in that area that I think it depressed the floor about that much. Maybe half an inch, maybe not even that. But since I was putting in the new and beautiful Herman, the support post, I figured why not go under the cabin and just jack it up and again do it the right way. These will lift a mobile home. I'm talking about just lifting up. The floor isn't load bearing, so to speak, not all of it. So I've got two of these, and I think they're in the right height range. And then to spread the weight out, I've got steel plates to sit them on after I level the ground. Let's just say the bugs can't eat steel to have that disappear in the future. So that's my goal. This is my other friend. Like I said, as a kid, I did enough creepy, crawly, under crawl spaces in 100-year-old houses. So what we used to do is take cardboard from different jobs and duct tape them together, and you slide that in on the ground, and actually then you could slide your tools. You could slide yourself on the cardboard in and out, and I just screwed up my right knee lifting the front of the pontoon boat when I was trying to get it out of the forest. I had it hooked up to the winch, but every so often you've got to get on one side or the other in the front and lift it to free the pontoons from the ramp, and then it'll go forward more. I'm paying for that. So anyway, that's what's up for today, for this morning. I hope it goes well. I've got womanized wood if I need that for supports to go across maybe a section of the joists, maybe 3 of them. I put a jack on each side, and then just crank it up. You know, I've got a level inside, just so it's a lot closer to true level, because I'm taking the time to put in the new plywood floor over the old one, and this is the time to do this, not later. So what I'm going to do right now, shut this off. Okay, we're in the cabin, and that big log, the 12th row, that's the one that pulled away from the hook, and that was on the end of it, and that just went right through the floor. You can imagine the sound. That's like a gigantic hammer from, well, it's just bizarre. So it basically lowered this little section of the floor. I put a level on it. Everything else seems to be really good. And remember, this was an exposed floor for 6 years. It was the construction site, so I'm really happy. But I'll be laying a new version of the wood we used for the ceiling. That's 30 sheets, I think. So those will be placed, instead of going the way these go, it'll be on the opposite side. So I really needed to take the center posts out anyway. So, because I have to have that first piece of flooring go straight out, and I think it ends somewhere around here, which is obviously past where the post is. So that's the plan. If everything works out, by the end of the day, I should have the floor low, and who knows, maybe you have the one piece of flooring in and the post back in place. That would be ideal. All right, that's it for right now.